Good morning, everyone. My name's Roger Horn. Welcome. I'm really pleased to be chairing this webinar on behalf of the JIB, and it's great to have so many of you joining us today. See the numbers kind of going up as I speak on this hottest day of the year, which I have to say I'm in quite a nice air-conditioned office, so reasonably sort of comfortable. Please, so a little bit of housekeeping. The webinar will be recorded. So if you need to sort of leave early or people sort of join sort of halfway through, we will publish the recording sort of afterwards, and any slides that are used will be also sort of circulated sort of afterwards, because I think they've got some fairly useful links and sort of things in them. For those, if you have sort of questions as we go through, there's a chat or sort of Q&A function, preferably the Q&A function, and we will have sort of time to have some sort of questions sort of at the end. I think the last webinar I did, I let our speakers go on a little bit, so I shall be a little more ruthless with the chairing sort of down today. So we're here to talk about two really important JIB member benefits. The Skills Development Fund and the Experienced Worker Assessment. We're joined today by Dan Woods, who you can see on the screen there. We'll do a proper introduction sort of shortly. He's Industry Engagement Manager at the ECS team, and he's been right at the heart of these developments. But before that, just a sort of quick step back and think about why we're having this conversation now. We all know the sector is evolving sort of quite quickly, whether it's a shift to net zero, explosion in smart tech, or simply the need to replace an aging workforce. The demand for skilled professionals has never been higher, and yet everyone tells me finding and keeping the right people with the right skills is still a major challenge. And this is where initiatives and JIB member benefits for JIB members like the Skills Development Fund come in, which is designed to support ongoing training and upskilling across the industry, helping employers invest in their workforce and giving individuals the opportunity to grow. It's not just about tick box, it's about long-term value for the business and for the individual. And alongside that, I'll try not to get too much of sort of Dan's sort of thunder away, we have the Experienced Worker Assessment, which is a really important pathway, because there are lots of people in this industry who've built up a lot of solid hands-on experience doing the job day in, day out, but you might not hold sort of the formal kind of sort of qualification to get their sort of ECS card. And the EWA provides a structured and quite respected route to that recognition. Now, we both know there's more we can do to raise awareness and uptake in both these initiatives, and that's exactly what today is about. So, as I'm just said, I'm pleased that we're joined by Dan Wood from the ECS, and he's been at the heart of this, working with employers, providers on exactly this. And Dan will be doing most of the talking. I'll do a little bit at the beginning, and he'll talk about both the fund and the assessment and how they work in practice, any sort of challenges and opportunities. As I said, there'll be a chance to ask questions, and whether you're thinking about funding training for your team or helping a colleague take that next step, this is the webinar for you. So, in terms of the agenda, if you could just flick forward, we'll do a next slide, please. Who are the JIB? That'll be really brief. We've got one slide, but the majority of the sort of discussion will be sort of Dan sort of taking us through what is ECS, the Experienced Worker Assessment, and the Skills Development Fund. So if you just take us on to the next slide, Dan. This will be obviously circulated. So just a little bit about sort of both of us. I look after sort of membership at the JIB, and quite a few of the people I've seen sort of register, I've either sort of met or sort of spoken to at some point sort of over the last sort of few years. Obviously, Dan, perhaps you want to say a little bit about your sort of background.
Hello there. My name's Dan Woods. I'm the ECS Industry Engagement Manager. My background is building services, engineering through apprenticeships, and then teaching, lecturing, and then working for a large awarding organisation, managing fire and security endpoint assessments. And then from there, I also wrote and created the competency framework along with industry experts and the Experienced Worker Assessment for fire and security. Our main focus today is going to be the electrical installation, maintenance and domestic Experienced Worker Assessment, but I'm also going to talk you through other sectors as well and their Experienced Worker Assessments that lead to gold card status.
all in all, sounds like you're pretty well qualified to to take us through today, Dan, sort of thing. Which was the little technical hiccup we had just before we sort of started. It might have been me trying to take us through sort of thing. So yeah, if you could just take us through to the next slide, Dan. So who are the JIB? As I say, I think quite a lot of the people. And sorry, the next one on, sort of Dan. So the ECA, so the JIB are a sort of partnership between Unite and the ECA, the Trade Association for the sector. And I think most people will be familiar with the JIB handbook, the JIB agreement, which is a kind of a central collective bargaining agreement sort of for the sector. Our sort of three main pillars are around sort of raising standards, helping our members to prosper, and providing a safer built environment for the industry. I'm going to keep it dead short, and I think that's I think enough on sort of the JIB, because I think there's a lot of people, most people will know the JIB on the call. So if I then hand over to you, Dan, to sort of take us through the what everyone's really waiting for, which I've been keeping from.
Thank you, Roger. So I'm going to talk to you just briefly about what is ECS, Electrotechnical Certification Scheme, who we are, what we do. Most people on this call today will know who we are and what we do, but just a little bit of what I do in the background as well as Industry Engagement Manager. So obviously we are the competency card scheme for the electrotechnical sector. So it's not just electrical, we run through lots of different electrotechnical sectors. The card is there not just for site access. It's not just there, it's just a piece of plastic to let you get on site and do a day's work. It's there for more than just ID and vetting. It's there to revalidate your qualifications. If you're a JIB member, then you're going to have grading on your card, which then obviously works across with our sector pay as well. That's in the JIB handbook. And then it'll also help you with any other professional membership or status that you require. So these cards do a lot more than just allow you site access. And the employer portal as well is also a useful tool. And it's a way of sort of keeping hold of your supply chain and employees, knowing where they are, whether they need to upskill in any way or any qualifications that expire or need upskilling. So 18th edition, and when that changes, or any 7671 updates. With fire and security, obviously, has been an interesting one recently that came in June, and that was the BS 5839 fire systems update. So again, that will be included in it as well. ECS in numbers, just to give you an idea of what we work with, on average per year, 68,000 registrations. We also now complete all the health and safety and any of the knowledge assessments, say fire and security or network infrastructure. BEMS, building controls, they're going to be done through remote assessment period. So there's no need to now go into a centre and carry out and complete your health and safety exam every 3 years. You can now do it through a remote invigilation service, as long as you have a laptop and a good quality camera that can monitor you through AI. We've got roughly 175,000 valid cards across the UK. We work with over 5,000 companies on the employer portal, and that's growing weekly. And what we find is, on average, there's about 2,500 daily checks. So people are checking cards, and we're also affiliated with CSCS. So you have the CSCS logo on your card. So you can also use the CSCS app to check them as well. So you may find that when you're on site. We cover roughly 60% plus of the electrical market, and we're also one of the 38 CSCS Alliance members, which was what I was talking about previously. ECS for sectors, and sectors which I tend to look after and work with, is electrical, which is the main one, electrical and power, fire emergency security systems, also known as FES, network infrastructure, telecoms, cellular, building controls, known as BEMS, cabling and jointing. That's low voltage, medium voltage, digital, audio visual, engineering, and we've got several related discipline cards as well. Plus all of these will have apprentice cards as well. Within them, trainees, and obviously an experienced worker assessment card if it's relevant. So working alongside the HSE, big part of this is to make sure that everybody that has a card has current up-to-date knowledge of health and safety and also fire awareness. So anybody that's going to be taking their health and safety and environmental exam with us soon, there are fire stopping and fire questions within it now. So you can go on to the ECS website, and there is a free downloadable guide on the question bank as well. So you can use that for revision purposes. Just to give you a bit of an idea of some of the people that I work with and how we set this out. So we set out things like sector-specific competency frameworks. Most of that is mapped against the current apprenticeship standard, which is all at level 3. So the idea is that we bring up all sector areas to a level 3 qualification status. Hence why we're talking today about experienced worker assessment. So a few people that we work with: Electrical Safety First, ECA, Select in Scotland, Unite the Union, HSE, SSAIB, different ones. For an example here, we've got the makeup of the FES technical committee that we work with, different ones from training providers, awarding organisations, large companies, manufacturers. So we get a broad spectrum of ideas and views and opinions to ensure that things are correct. And then that will then go through the DFE, Department for Education, and IFATE, plus IFATE's now known as Skills England. So you'll see changes there probably, where things will be mentioned that way. Work with over 5,000 organisations using the employer portal. The employer portal is a fantastic tool which allows you to migrate over, put all of your employees onto that sector, manage your workforce and your supply chain, and make sure that everybody holds relevant, up-to-date qualifications, competencies, and they've got what's known as SKEBs, the skills, knowledge, experience and behaviours that's required, and mapped to these competency frameworks. So you can use your cards to validate qualified personnel. You can use the employer portal to validate it. It'll also tell you when cards are running out, so you haven't got the issue of them turning up on a site. Cards now run out, they're not allowed access to site. You'll get emails and updates certainly 6 months prior to when they will actually be running out. So it's a quick, easy way of checking whether you've got employees that are running short of their ECS card. You can put your apprentice cards on there as well. And again, a good key factor is if you're a JIB member or an apprentice that achieves their apprenticeship, their first gold card is on us as well. So we will supply the first gold card to them for free. That's just a way of us saying, well done and congratulations on achieving your apprenticeship. You know, you take electrical 4 years, it's quite a thing to celebrate and achieve. And then we've got contract compliance as well. So if you're tendering for contracts, it's always a good key aspect to say that actually all of our employees, all of our supply chain are up to the current competency standards, you know, BS 7671 and etc. ECS checks that are done through different people. These are just some of the people that we work with. There's a whole lot more that are doing this, and a lot more that are starting to now bring in ECS checks for all of their sites as well. You'll start to see it more within social housing as well and places like that. So it's important to keep your card up to date. Or if you are working in the industry, like we're talking today about experienced worker assessment, how to then actually upskill and gain the level 3 qualification, meet the current sector specific competency frameworks at level 3, and able to gain your ECS gold card. And if you work for a JIB company, then you can obviously have your grading on the card as well, which is mapped to your pay rates. So experienced worker assessment, just going to go through a few. Like, key focus today is going to be the electrical, but I'm going to discuss the others as well with you, because you may maybe have a large company that's actually working along other sectors apart from electrical. You might be doing fire security, you might be doing network infrastructure, you might be doing building controls. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about all of them. The idea is that it's mapped against skills, knowledge, experience and behaviours from the level 3 standard or current apprenticeship standard. And then you're looking at achieving basically the final year that an apprentice would do. So an NVQ level 3. So there is on-site assessments that's going to be required for that. Through our Skills Development Fund, through the Joint Industry Board, there is actually funding available for JIB companies. And because this is a level 3 qualification, we will fund it up to 75% of the course fees, or a maximum £750 per person. Those applications come through to us, and then we look at those. They are done on an ad hoc basis. If there is other qualifications within it, I'll speak about this more later. but we do tend to look into them at detail. So that £750 isn't set in stone, depending on the qualification or which things you're looking at doing. If it's an HNC or an HND that somebody's interested in, then it may go up as well. So FES, for those two bits, for the fire and security sector, has experience worker assessments. There's 2 experience worker assessments written by 2 awarding organisations, BPEC Certification Limited and EAL. And I'll talk a little bit more about those later on, how they work. But what I want to do now is just discuss with you about the electrical pathways. So if you or one of your employees has been working in the industry for several years, for this, you have to be working in the industry for a minimum of 5 years. If you're going for a domestic electrician experience worker assessment, it's 3 years, but 5 years if it's installation or maintenance electrician that you're after. First stage is going to be thinking about what you required and where you are with your actual experience and current qualifications. So it is available across England, Northern Ireland and Wales. Scotland have their own, so you need to go to SECT accrediting, which is the electrical technical competency or adult training routes that they require as well. But since September 2023, there is an updated version of the EWA that mirrors the updated installation and maintenance electrician standard apprenticeship. And that, in fact, includes a mandatory minimum level 2 qualification entry requirement. So what we're saying there is, and we'll discuss in a second about skill scans and things, but to actually start on an experienced worker assessment, and again, this is through 2 awarding organisations, City and Guilds and EAL. This was written and developed by several others, ECA, JIB, NET, Unite, Searchall, us at ECS, NAPIT, and obviously City and Guilds and EAL as the awarding organisations and IET for compliance. There's a couple of links here as well. So when we send these slides around, you'll be able to click on those and they'll take you straight to the test website. So we'll talk about that next. The experience worker assessment is recognise your current occupational competence, and it's just a way of demonstrating it and then actually getting a formal regulated qualification at level 3, which will then allow you to apply for an ECS Gold Card. So the makeup of it is, to start, there is going to be assessments on site where an assessor from a training provider or a college is going to come out and actually watch you carry out installation work, maintenance work, either in commercial environment or domestic environment if you choose a domestic electrician route. Once you've achieved those, so you're going to be assessed in several different ways. There's going to be on-site assessments, there's going to be observations, there'll also be questions, answers. There's no formal exams to sit within this or anything like that. It is an MVQ, so it is on-site. So it's carried out, you gathering evidence of work that you've done and just showing that you are up and meeting the current level 3 competencies. At the end of that, there is an AM2 assessment to be completed. That's called the AM2E, E for experienced worker, and then that meets the criteria for an ECS Gold Card. There's some links under here that will just take you to a few places that will help you with that as well. And it's also recognised under the electrotechnical assessment specification as an equivalent to the industry apprenticeship. So anybody who's working within the industry has got more than 5 years experience, has then wishing to raise and come up to level 3 standard, then or equivalent to a current apprenticeship, didn't achieve the apprenticeship, never sat in an apprenticeship. For whatever reason, it happens, and it's not just within electrical, it's within all sectors. This is just a way of you now showing your competencies and your skills and your experience and behaviours to then map against not just a gold card status, but the current curriculum framework as well. Qualifications you'll need. You will require a level 2 electrical qualification to be eligible for the installation and maintenance electrician EWA. These are lifted straight from the test website, and there are some links to that as well, and they have a skill scan for it as well. So qualifications in areas such as 7671, so your 18th edition, or your inspection and testing, they're specialised. They do not cover the underpinning knowledge requirement. So if you do hold 18th edition or inspection testing, they are not classed as the level 2 qualification that will allow you to then start your EWA. You do need a minimum of 5 years work experience as a practicing electrician, you'll need to somehow validate that experience as well. So from a CV, if you've worked for a current employer for 5 years, then they can validate it for you, but that does need to be formally validated in some way. You'll also need to be working day to day as a practicing electrician. So this is an on-site assessment done through an NVQ. So an assessor is going to come out and visit you on site and see you actually carry out electrical installation work. So you do need to be working or practicing as an electrician. And only evidence that is generated after you enroll. So that's an important factor. Some people come in and say, well, a year ago, I'd done a huge lighting installation, or we'd done a lot of power supplies to some factories. Unfortunately, that evidence is not valid. It has to be completed once you enroll on the EWA. So once you're signed up with a training provider, you're registered with an award organisation, and your evidence that you submit will be valid. So any photos you've got on your phones or anything like that, or any sort of client work that you've done already, unfortunately can't be mapped in. It will have to be live new evidence once you've enrolled. The only thing is that evidence is it might be useful to actually show that you've got the 5 years experience, or 3 years if you're doing a domestic route. So skills, and this is from that. No exemptions from the practical. They are work-based assessments, so you need to ensure that you're able to complete these. There is a skills scan on the TESP website, and I will take you through that in a minute, and you're just going to fill that in. And the idea is it's basically just like a questionnaire to say, right, am I ready to actually enroll and take this experienced worker assessment? So you'll need to gain the experienced worker assessment qualification, but you also need to do the AM2E assessment. So you need to do both of those to then get your grading and your gold card. If you've already completed some elements, so if you've done 18th edition or initial verifications, your test and inspect, you won't need to repeat those, so they can be mapped in. So some knowledge can be mapped into this assessment, but being a formal regulated qualification, any evidence that's gained and put on site has to be done after enrolment. So skill scan, there is a link at the bottom here. Once we send these through, this takes you straight to the TESP website, and that will take you through the skill scan, and it will help you decide whether the installation and maintenance electrician EWA is right for you, or whether it's a domestic one, depending on your current work and what evidence you can supply once you're enrolled. So to pass EWA, you'll need to demonstrate breadth and depth of knowledge and practical skills covering all areas listed in the skill scan. So it basically breaks down all of the criteria that you need to meet whilst you're registered and enrolled on the experienced worker assessment. So it's important to read through the skill scan and make sure that you can confidently tick adequate as a minimum for every statement within it as you go. And it's highly unlikely you'll be able to provide the evidence required to pass the EWA if you can't put adequate down for all of it. So you do need to make sure that you are doing a broad range of installation work or electrical work that's taken place. And again, please follow the link. This is your first stage. If you are wanting to enroll on an EWA, before you even go to a training provider, then you need to go on the TESP website and complete this skill scan, just to make sure that you can actually follow it through and find all the evidence that's required for this level 3 qualification. The experienced worker assessment is available at several centres around the country. There's a link there for find an EWA provider. That's again come from the TESP website. So you can look around anywhere in the country. There will be somebody close by that will be able to provide this experienced worker assessment for you. The 2 qualifications and the numbers are there on the slide. EAL is the Ofqual number 603-59821, and the City and Guilds is a 2346. So it doesn't matter which one you sit, they are both mapped against the same competency standards. And so really just look at where they are, look at regional areas for you. You may already use the training provider for other short courses that you do, maybe electrical energy storage or solar PV or something. They may be able to help you through this EWA. But I do suggest make sure you fill in that skill scan first before contacting them. And then we have other experienced worker assessments available through that we've actually worked with different training providers, different industry stakeholders, awarding organisations to build and put together. So if you're doing fire and security, there is EWA routes that can be found on our links at the bottom there under the ECS cards. Two options there, BPEC certification and EAL. That's also cross-hatched as well. So what I mean by that is, if you're working in the fire and security sector, but you're only doing installation work or you're only doing commissioning work, then you can map a experienced worker assessment just to that one pathway that you're doing. If not, then you could do the full technician route, which covers everything from installation, servicing, breakdown, maintenance, commission, etc. Network infrastructure installers, they're previously called Datacoms. These have been approved through Open Awards, and there is several people now that are offering the EWA for them. There's a link below for that. If you're doing wiring or panel builders, there's an EWA that's also been approved for that. All very similar. Some of these don't have site experience included. So what I mean by that is that you don't actually have to be assessed on site. Some of them are just in-house assessments. So what I mean by that is that you actually just go to a training provider and you'll complete some knowledge tests, and you'll also complete some practicals as well. There's an EWA for building controls or BEMS engineers, and that's available through Group Horizon. And we also have a level 3 route, which is a vocational qualification for cabling and jointing. That's the MVQ level 3 power supply and distribution cabling qualification. Also from that, you've also got NET, which also do an LV jointing qualification as well. So that's the experienced worker assessment. How can we help, and how can we help you then find a way of getting onto the actual experienced worker assessment? But also we're going to cover off actually how can we help financially. So if you are a JIB member or you're an apprentice that work registered with us through a JIB training provider, then you are eligible for a skills development fund. That fund is there for any of our members to access. That's accessible for a level 3 course up to £750. There is links on the next slide which will talk you through all of the different sections. There's a link at the bottom there to our website. There's an application form, and send those through. Our financial year works from the 1st of June to the 1st of June next year. And the idea is, if anybody has completed any of the qualifications listed on this slide, so we will cover anybody upskilling as well. So it's not just for EWA. If you've done, say, small scale solar PV, or you've done level 3 award in electrical energy storage systems, or electric vehicle installations, or anything like that. If you've done anything since the 1st of June this year, then we will backdate it to that point as well. So we'll help with those funds. One I've put on there and highlighted is the level 4 design and verification of electrical installations. And from there, that's actually probably the biggest one which we help out JIB member companies with. That's normally the most common one that people want to get, because obviously that's graded against the card scheme as well. So it helps with any pay rises, etc. But any experienced worker assessments, if anybody's interested in getting into management, wants to do an HNC or a BTEC or some sort of foundation degree, then we can help with that as well. And as you can see, we'll take that up to level 4 or 5 courses for an HNC or an ONC, where you can fund that up to £1,000 per year. It's a simple process. Fill in the application form that's on the website. That then goes through to us. That goes through to the Skills Development Fund charity members or committee members, who review it and then decide yes or no against those. If you're a JIB member, it will be a yes. This isn't just here for JIB members. If you are unemployed and trying to get back into the electrical industry, then you can also apply to complete some of these courses as well. So quite often we'll fund the 18th edition and also supply the textbooks for those as well. And that's just to help people get back into industry as well, for any reason that unfortunately they've found themselves in unemployment at the time. Level 6 courses can be funded up to £1,250 per year. And we also have a Paul Corby bursary fund, which can be up to £5,000 for higher level degrees. And then, so anybody who really wants to do some sort of BA honours or something like that within building services engineering. So that's the experience worker assessment, and that's where it all works for electrical and the other industry sectors. If you have any questions, me and Roger are here for the next 15 minutes to answer those for you.
Yeah, well, I think we've had a few in the Q&A. Just chair's privilege. Can I just ask a couple of things? It might be useful in terms of Skills Development Fund general eligibility. I think it's kind of JIB member, tick, holds some form of ECS sort of grading. Would that's certainly for the Skills Development Fund. For EWA, would that still be sort of a
yeah? So you should have a card of some sort.
They'd have some sort of card,
so card or EWA card.
Exactly. They as being working for a JIB member company, they'd be having the benefit credits, sort of the employee benefits package from ECIS, sort of being bought for them. Sort of tick. The course is on the list, sort of tick, and then the short application form. So it really is as straightforward. It's free money, and I think people tend to think, well, yeah, what's the catch, sort of thing, and there isn't the catch, sort of really. If you hit those kind of that criteria and eligibility, then you can apply for, and pretty much certainty get a contribution towards the training, sort of thing. So one more for me, perhaps, before we have a look at the sort of questions on the Q&A. In terms of the skills scan, that's something you do on your own kind of beforehand. You don't get any help from a training provider or something. It's if you've got that experience, it will be straightforward to sort of work your way through that sort of skills.
So it's basically a questionnaire which you fill in. It's on the test website. There's a link to it. It's quite short, and you just need to.
That's what I was going to ask.
Just tick.
How long?
Yeah, right. adequate, sufficient, or not, and it just gives you an idea of to know that you can meet all of the different sort of installation requirements and criteria for the EWA.
Okay. Great. If we look to the Q&A, so I'll just pick a few out. So what happens if I don't have a level 2? Is there an equivalent sort of for EWA?
There is something coming out. It's not out yet, and it still has to go through validation through ECS. So this is all new, and something I didn't mention in the webinar. But EAL are producing a level 2 question assessment, like a knowledge assessment, that you'd be able to go to a centre. There'd be no training as such, because the idea is that you've got 5-10 years experience, and you would go in, sit the exam. That has been mapped against what TESP have created for the criteria for the EWA. So if you don't hold a level 2 qualification, there is that option to do that. However, that's still early stages and still needs to go through some processes for us to validate it as well, to allow it to come through and be part of the Skills Development Fund.
Okay. That's good. So
watch the space for that one.
Yeah, if that gets validated, is that kind of weeks or months away? So I don't want to put you on the spot.
Yes, it'll be this year.
Yeah, this year. Great, that's good. I think some of these are sort of perhaps related. How long does the EWA take from start to finish? On average, I imagine.
On average, if you can provide the evidence and ensure that assessor can come out on site and see what they need to see and assess you against a set criteria, then anything between 3 to 18 months to achieve.
Okay, helpful. What happens if I fail? Do you allow a reassessment?
That would be up to the training provider and their quality assurance practices. It's a regulated qualification, so they're really, because it's an MVQ, it wouldn't be a fail, it would be more of a refer. Obviously, if it's something safety critical that's happened, then there may be questions involved in further actions. But again, that's down to the training provider delivering it.
Okay. How do you validate 5 years experience? I don't know if this is related to the skill scan. Does it have to be of a specific standard or employer?
Again, the test website will help you with that and the skill scan, but really it's just you need to have some formal way of validating that you've got 5 years industry experience. The reason it's 5 years is obviously because it's over the apprenticeship time frame, which is 4 years. So the idea is that if you've got a CV, if you've got any sort of could be anything really, could be sort of like P45s from employers or anything like that, anything to show that you've been employed within the industry for 5 years. If you're self-employed, it could be work that you've carried out within the last 5 years, 5-10 years. 5 years is the minimum.
Okay. Hopefully that's answered. If you attain an EWA, do you become a registered electrician, or do you have to do your 18th edition?
You would require your 18th edition, and that is a requirement of the ECS card. So probably a good idea. If you are a JIB member, you could also apply for that as well. We could also look at funding that as well as EWA. I'd always recommend keeping up with current editions anyway of 7671 as a requirement.
Yeah, just so I'm sort of clear. 18th edition 2391, those aren't normally included in the Skills Development Fund. I thought perhaps my
18th edition is, we'll look at 18th edition for people. We're just funding one for somebody who's unemployed. The inspection and testing, no, isn't.
Sure. Okay. So what if my course isn't on the list of the courses covered? If it's not on the list, is it worth getting in touch to ask?
Yes, yeah, you're more than happy to get in touch with us. I would probably recommend at that point getting in touch with your local training provider that you're going to use for the EWA, and they should be able to direct you into what you have or what you need to upskill.
Sure. Okay. Can you just elaborate on the offer to unemployed workers in relation to what is required? I think you obviously mentioned it a couple of times.
Yeah, so the JIB fund is there. It's our way of giving back to the industry. And the process is if somebody for any circumstances could, for some reason, find themselves unemployed, ill health, something like that, if they're now better, want to get back into employment, sectors move on, there's certain qualifications required, like 18th edition, then we will actually look at funding that for them as well, and just helping them have that stepping stone to get back into the industry and back to work.
Okay, that's helpful. That's helpful to know. Rough idea on sort of costings.
Yeah, costings anywhere between £1,200 to £1,500, possibly 18, depending on what training provider you go to. And obviously, if you've got certain bits which you can then RPL in, so you've got recognised prior learning that can come into it, you may already hold some level 3 qualifications like a diploma, then you might be able to transfer some of that into it.
Okay. Question, I'm probably a little off, but I'll sort of pose it sort of anyway. It's a question around sort of grandfather rights, experienced workers needing their grey cards renewed, but they don't have current qualifications in place and are nearing the end of their working career.
So yeah, I understand that one. That's why the EWA is being produced, not just for grandfather rights. It's for people who to come up to and raise the benchmark of all competency standards. It's not just electrical, it's all construction sectors. So there is minimum competency or technical competencies required now for all sectors, and that is mapped at a level 3 benchmark, which meets the apprenticeship standard.
Okay. If the candidate is unsuccessful, obviously they're working as an electrician, is the employer made aware of that sort of position?
So if they're unsuccessful of completing the EWA, then that's not something that we would get involved with directly. It depends on the relationship between the employee and the employer at the company.
Right, but it's not automatically sort of enforced.
No, nothing's put across the internet or anything like that. There's nothing in the public domain to show that there's a failure.
But I suppose if perhaps the employer is funding it, would that in that sort of case, or is it still the relationship?
If the employer's funding it, then they're going to want to know that it has been achieved, and obviously that will affect them gaining ECS gold cards, and if they're JIB member, pay structures, etc. So there is that to factor in as well.
Okay. We've got a couple more, so they're coming in, still coming in thick and fast. I think so. Why are there 5 EWA derivatives? Fire energy, panel builder. Why not just have one EWA?
It's experience worker assessments for each industry sector, and each one decides on what those competency standards are going to be. So a lot of work I do is working with key industry stakeholders to then factor in what the apprenticeship standard is, how we can map qualifications into that, how we can look at creating experience worker assessments for it. So there is different experience worker assessments for different sectors. So the one that's completed for the electrical we're talking about today will be very different to the one done for network infrastructure, and what's required there, or for building controls.
And I'm right in thinking prior to this year, the other derivatives, using that word, of EWA were included in the Skills Development Fund. It's this year that the electrical installation, if I call it that, that's been added into that's our kind of sort of contribution to help sort of raise sort of skills. Conscious of sort of time, I don't know if we might have covered this off, but let me say, can you confirm that someone doing the experienced worker qualification will also need to have the 18th edition and initial verification? We might have already covered that one off.
It's useful for mapping in certain knowledge and experience and behaviours, but is not a requirement.
Right.
They can be achieved outside of the EWA. But I would recommend, certainly, if you don't hold 18th edition, completing that alongside it or prior, because it will help you with certainly some of the question elements or knowledge elements within it.
Okay. We've got a couple of last questions before so it's 12 minutes, 3 minutes to go. How, in terms of the sort of the funding, if you're like unemployed or you're an employer, how does it work? Do you pay for it and then it's claimed back sort of through our sort of through our system? Sort of Dan?
So if you're unemployed and let's say we're funding the 18th edition, we will ask you to go to a training provider, get a quote from them for the price, send that to us, and then you've got two choices. You can either pay for it, claim that back from us, or we can actually backs over and pay the training provider on their behalf directly.
Yeah. Okay.
And that works for EWA or for any other course that's listed on Skills Development Fund.
Okay. I think this will make it to the last one. I think, will the EWA restrict work for the specific sector, or can they work in any sector? I'm not sure. That's
if we take the FES one, for example, if you were to only have the, let's say, the crosshatch card for the maintenance route, and you only were doing maintenance on fire systems or security systems, it may create an issue if you're then going to commission or install on a site that then is checking cards. Right.
Dan, finally, sort of thank you for sort of joining us. I think you're off on holiday, so after today, so have a nice break, and thank you for joining us today. And I'm going to end the webinar sort of now. So
thank you
everyone for joining us.